Hello and welcome to the Pederscope. I am your host, Steve Pederson. It's Thursday. What should we call Thursday? How about Thankful Thursday? It is Thankful Thursday here on the Pederscope. We're talking about keys to being the difference. This is episode number 59, entitled Think It Through. And when you do that, you got to go like this. Think it through. Yesterday, one of my favorite listeners, who is very active here on the Pederscope, and I appreciate him very much. I want to give a shout out to Dennis. Dennis always has a lot of great comments and asks a lot of great questions. And yesterday, I was talking about the topic of faith. And Dennis asked a great question. He's like, what's the difference between faith and trust? That's a great question. When I was thinking about it this morning, I was first thinking it through, and I wasn't really coming up with a very clear answer right away. And so my first impulse, the first thing I thought to do was, I'm going to Google it. Or Siri it. Do you Siri something? That's interesting. You Google things, but you don't Siri things. You ask Siri, but you Google things. Anyhow, right as I was about to Google it, I thought I would just type something into Google like, what's the difference between faith and trust? Trust Google. Google has all the answers. I have faith in Google, and so I trust Google. Anyhow, but then as I was about to do that, I remembered a situation that had come up recently where I had a pretty deep, perplexing theological question, and my first impulse was to go and ask one of the teachers, officially appointed teachers in the church. I mean, after all, if anybody would have the answer, it would be this person who's gone to seminary and has studied things out. That would be the right person to ask. But as I shared this dilemma about this question that I was having and struggling with my coach, he challenged me to discover the answer myself. The point that he made was that all too often we do the easy thing by letting others do the thinking or the heavy lifting for us. And I think what was really particularly fascinating to me just about the timing of this question, this whole thing that we're thinking about, is that last night I was actually thinking about this, not this topic specifically, but just the whole idea of the fact that more often than we realize, the answers are already within us. I think a lot of, it's almost like we have this sort of knowledge, but it doesn't, until we really dive deep into it, we're not consciously aware of it, let's put it that way. But the more that we trust ourselves, the more we find that we actually already kind of know the answer to things. So the first thing that I did this morning in thinking about this question about what's the difference between faith and trust was I thought, before I go on to Google and ask, I'm just going to write it down. And I actually filled up a whole page just full of notes, just working it through and thinking it through and realizing, wow, I can actually come up with an answer about this on my own without having to Google it. Now, I think it's great. I think it's super great to ask questions, especially once we've already formed an opinion about something. So never be afraid to ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. But I think what happens is that if we don't want to hand our power over to someone else. Think before you ask. Think before you act. I think those are great little tidbits to live by. How is this I know I haven't answered the question yet, and there's a reason why I haven't answered the question of what's the difference between faith and trust. I will address that on another issue, but the reason I'm not addressing it on this issue, I'll let you know here in just a second. Thinking things through. How is this a key to being the difference? Well, having your own well thought out convictions, beliefs, and opinions about things are going to make you a stronger person. It brings more self-confidence and enables you to be someone that others can lean on. Thinking things through is the basis for leadership and making a difference. So here's my action plan for today. It's actually kind of a homework assignment. What I want to challenge you to do is ask yourself, what is the difference between faith and trust? And take out a piece of paper and start writing down your answer and seeing what comes out. Start forming an opinion about it before you consult a Google or Siri. Just find out what's inside. I think you'll be surprised that we know a lot more than we give ourselves credit for. So that's the action plan. And once you've done that, then do a little bit of research. Then Google it afterwards, and just see if there's maybe some aspect that enriches or enforces or reinforces or even changes your opinion that you've formed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this Pederscope on my website, and I would love to hear some feedback in the comments section. But as for today, thank you so much for joining me on this, the 59th episode of the Pederscope, Keys to Being the Difference. Think it through. For this and all of my previous Pederscopes, you can go to my website, stevepederson.com. Just click on the Pederscopes link at the top, and it'll take you to all the Pederscopes. Guys, thanks for joining me. Have a thankful Thursday. We'll catch you on the next one.